Hi, I'm Meredith from Turquoise Boutique Studio, and today I'll be talking to you about making your own string art. This project is a part of our Maker's DIY kit that we offer. Everything that you need for the project gets delivered to your doorstep to make it easy for you and your family to be creative. This tutorial today will focus on the cactus design that we have here. Although there are so many different options for your string art, we can customize anything that you'd like. Another one that we have as one of our standard designs is this rainbow heart. So I'll be talking about both of these designs at the beginning, but the majority of the directions will be for this cactus. You can take the same concepts that I talk about here and apply them to any design though. Let's just go over what you get when you receive your kit. There's some things that you also need to have from home, so I'll just talk about them now. The first item that you receive in your kit is this instruction sheet. You can either use that or follow along in the video and stop when you need to do something. Then you have your design on a piece of vellum paper that's transparent. It helps you place it. And then approximately 23 by 23 centimeters piece of wood. And one of the things that's really special about our kit is that it's a really high quality piece of wood and it's really thick and sturdy. We also provide a ruler for you to help place your design and map out exactly where you want your nails to be. Of course, the nails. And within the nail package, you'll also have this sawtooth hanging kit. So it has this ridged piece of metal, as well as two shorter nails. They're shorter than the rest of them. And then the last thing in the kit is the package of string. So depending on your design, we send out different colors to go along with it. Now the items that you'll need from home, you'll need a hammer, a pencil, and then scissors, and we definitely recommend having some tweezers around to help out get into some of the certain areas that you may not be able to reach with your fingers. All right, let's begin. The first step for your tutorial is to prep your design. Sometimes the design will come to you with everything ready to go. Where the dots are is where you'll place the nails. However, sometimes you may also receive a design that has the basic shape of your design, but not the dots. This is when the ruler comes in handy. What you can do is use it to figure out exactly where you'll place the dots for your design, for your nails. I recommend about 1 centimeter between each nail, but it's totally up to your preference. You can do more or less depending on how you want it to look. Or around curves, it can look better if you have more nails to kind of achieve the rounded shape. Here I've kind of began just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Take the ruler. This one here, there's a little bit extra space, so you can kind of eyeball it and see, make some of them a little bit wider or a little bit shorter than 1 centimeter. And then just go ahead and finish marking the particular section that you're working on. So there, I see it's a little bit longer than I would have liked. At this stage, since you're using a pencil, it's really easy to make any changes. So you can be satisfied with how it looks. If you're doing the rainbow heart, what you receive is just the heart. The rest of it has to be mapped out with your ruler and your pencil. So I'm just going to show you now quickly how to do that because it's a little bit different. Since you'll be doing the negative space, which means you're connecting the design to then an exterior border, you need to use the ruler to mark off where you want that border to be. So usually it's about 23 to 24 centimeters. So here you can kind of, this is perfect because it's 24 centimeters. So what you'll do is decide how much space you want to have at the bottom of your piece of wood and measure that. So let's say we want to have 1 centimeter. So the line for the bottom border will be about there. And then you can kind of lightly draw a line between those two dots so that you'll know exactly where to do it. On this particular one, since I'm not doing this, I'm not going to do it. But essentially, it's really quite easy. You measure another centimeter from here to here where you'll start. So officially, the first dot would be here. And then I can measure another centimeter over there. So that's how you would do if you were doing a border. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to our cactus here since that's what we're focusing on today. You still need to use the ruler in this case. However, it's just making sure that your design is centered on your piece of wood. So first I kind of eyeball it to see how it may look. That looks pretty good there. And then I just use the ruler to confirm. So it's about 1 3/4 from the top, from the bottom. A little bit less up there, so I'll just shift this down a little bit. And then you want to do the same thing for the left and the right. About 2 there. And about 2 there. It doesn't really need to be perfect. If it's half a centimeter off, it's not going to be that noticeable, especially with this cactus design. But that looks about right. I just want to point out about your wood that through the translucent paper, you'll be able to see some of the knots. Now the knots in the wood are the round, darker colored pieces of the wood. Sometimes it can be more difficult to nail in the nails in this area. So if it's at all possible, you can shift the orientation of your wood around so that you avoid having to nail in there. This looks pretty good. So I like to take a container and empty my nails in so it makes it easier to work with. I'll just pop this in here while I explain a little bit about how to hammer these in. It's not like hammering in other nails for home improvement projects. There's a little bit of a method that you want to employ. So usually what I do is I hold it with my forefinger and my thumb, and they're pretty pointy, so you can kind of sometimes push them in so they kind of catch the wood like I've done there. And I'll just lightly tap a few times, and then I can move my hands away before I start tapping a little bit more vigorously. Okay, so I've finished that first one, and this is a good chance for you to set up exactly the height that you want your nails to reach. So I think that looks pretty good. Before I mess around with it too much, I just want to get those other nails in so the paper doesn't move. So I've kind of pushed it in a little bit, holding with my thumb and my forefinger, gently tapping. Okay, now I'm just going to talk a little bit more about how you shift a nail around if you're not happy with how it's leaning. If you look from up above down at the nail, you can get a better perspective on whether it's leaning or not. This one is actually leaning away from you in the camera. It's shifting a little bit that way. So what I want to do is take the nail on the opposite side and gently tap it back into what will be a little bit more of a straight up and down position. It doesn't take a lot of force to do this, and especially if it's not in all the way yet. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I'll just put in one more here. Alright, so just to double check that these are approximately the same height, I like to hold it up more at eye level to take a look. It looks like these two are the same, but this one needs to get further in. Now for the rest of the piece, you can kind of use these items as a guideline to how high your nail should be put in. Sometimes the opposite thing will happen, so that you'll hammer one nail in a little bit too far and you'll need to pop it out. That's when this other side of the hammer comes in handy. If you wedge the nail in between the two different sides and then pull it back like a lever, it should pop out of the wood a little bit. That was actually a good height, so I'm going to put that back down. Now you're ready to, now that these placeholders are there and they're all straight, you're ready to move on to hammer in the rest of your design. What I recommend is beginning in the center of your design, whatever it is, because as you move your way out, you're still able to access the nails from around the edges. If you start on the outside, it may be okay, but you want to just always make sure you're moving in a way that you'll be able to get your fingers into the area where you need to in order to hold the nail. That's why it's generally better to start in the center and work your way out. Each nail that you're doing, it's also really important to make sure you're happy with the height and the orientation of the nail each time, because as you put in the nails, there isn't as much space to kind of move things around. All right, so now I'm going to hammer in the rest of this, starting from the middle here, and I'll meet you back afterwards. Okay, as you can see, I finished the majority of the bigger cactus here. All that's left is the top little flower here that we'll be doing, and I wanted to take this chance just to show you how to work in a smaller space when you have some other nails around you. So you take your nail and basically you want to just kind of maneuver yourself and your fingers as best you can to fit in the space that you have. Luckily for me here, I started from the inside and worked my way out, so at least there's still access to this area from the other sides, but it's still a little bit tight next to the top of this one arm of the cactus. This is definitely a time when you want to make sure that these other nails are straight first before you nail in the rest of this flower here, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult to get in there otherwise. I would do here all the entire inner line before moving to the outside. Again, just to leave the access there as close as you can. And you can just keep on shifting your piece so that you can find your way in. It's gonna get definitely a little bit tight here. The good news is that because this design is very tight here, that if there is any issue with the spacing of the nails, it won't be as obvious. So let's time lapse it then. Okay, so I have finished nailing in my pattern for the cacti, and I'm really excited. It looks really good so far. I've checked to make sure that they seem to be relatively all the same height, and I think I feel pretty good about it. And now we can start talking about what we do once you're all finished with the nails. Basically, you need to remove this piece of vellum paper, and although it seems like something that you wouldn't need to think that much about, there is a way to do it where you can avoid getting little pieces of paper caught in the nails. So what you want to do is take it by one of the edges and try to bring the paper up to the top of the nails on all the way around without trying to completely remove the paper. And I'll give you a little close up here of me doing this so you can see what I'm doing with my hands. You want to kind of grab it by the edges and gently pull the paper up uniformly to bring it to the top of the nails without trying to remove it at that time. Got it there. And once you get it up in a certain area, then it kind of makes it a little easier to move it around the rest of the space. This little action the first time before you try to rip it completely off is really helpful. Now, also, once everything is towards the top of the nails, I highly recommend that you take a photo now, especially if you have a different pattern and it's a little more complex. Although it seems kind of logical that this should remain a pattern in your mind, sometimes you kind of forget which things should connect. So just in case, take a picture just to make sure, especially with the rose here, where exactly I'll be doing my lines with the string. And then after you've taken your photo or taken a mental picture, then you can rip the vellum paper off completely. So I have a few little bits here that have been left behind, but if I didn't do it this way, there'd be a lot more. You can just use the tweezers from home to pull these out if you're unable to get them with your nails. And now we're ready for adding on our string. So with your kit comes a few different colors of thread. There will be 2 tones of green, a lighter green and a dark green, and then a color for your desert rose. So there's a few different techniques you can think about how exactly you want to do this. I always recommend putting a border around your design first thing. That way, in case you've taken a mental picture instead of an actual one, you'll quickly remember the outline and the path that your strings are supposed to take. And it kind of sets around the edge the anchor for all of your strings after that. One of the things that you can do is use these 2 colors in a really interesting way. One of the options I did here was I decided to make the smaller cactus a different color than the larger one. Another option would be to make the outline in the dark color and then use the lighter color on the interior design for both of them. It's really up to you, and you can do whatever you want to with it. I think today I'm going to show you what it might look like with the 2-tone. So I'm going to start with the darker green to make an outline around the larger cactus. What you want to do is take the string and pick any of the nails on the exterior that you'd like to start with. I'm just going to select this one on the corner here. Double knot everything for most of the time, unless I say otherwise, pretty much. So double knot and make it secure. I always leave my tails, I call them, on to the very end, because sometimes it's useful to tie off and finish by tying onto one of these again. Once you've tied on your double knot and it's quite secure, we are going to do an exterior outline. That means that the string will always be coming around the nails from the outside, as opposed to from inside the design. I like to ensure that each wraparound is secure. So what I do is I loop once around the nail and then move on. Make sure that you press down in the same action the string to the bottom of the nail. That way it's truly the anchor for your design all the way around, and it will look uniform. You can kind of develop a rhythm here where you wrap around the nail with a loop, tighten it, and then make sure it's pushed down. You don't want to pull so hard where your nails are almost bending over, but you want to make it secure enough so that it looks taut. So you'll kind of get into a rhythm here. I'm only using one hand right now, so it's a little bit awkward. I'm going to put this down and just show you how you can easily use your finger, especially with design, to easily wrap around and then push down and move on. So you're going to do this the entire way around. loop one extra time around, trim off using my scissors a long enough tail so it's comfortable and easy to double knot it again. And I'm going to take the tail from tying on, and I always find it better if you bring both of the strings inside of the design. That way the knot will most likely be able to be hidden after you've trimmed off the tails. So make sure the first one is pretty secure before doubling up. Your exterior outline is now finished. If you were going to just use one color like I did here for the cactus, you could just continue using the same string to make your diagonal crisscross pattern. But because I've opted to go with the two-tone in this tutorial, that's what we're doing. So once you've tied on, then you're able to start really going wherever you want with your string. There's no set pattern to what you're doing here. You can just kind of see how things go. You also can very easily take these any part of the strings out and redo them again. This part will move very quickly, so it doesn't really matter if you're just kind of playing around for 10 minutes and seeing what you like and what you don't. What I found personally, I like it after you've gone to a nail to make sure that you go somewhere else that creates a V shape. I find that I like those lines the best, but it's totally up to you. Once you get going and you get a little more efficient at it too, you can focus on filling a certain area or certain arm of the cactus quickly. And every once in a while I like to loop it one time around the nail extra, just because there's always times where things kind of unravel, and hopefully that will catch it a little bit more. So kind of play around with it and see if you like what's happening, if you like how it looks. I like the diagonal pattern always to at least fill the space first, and then you can kind of explore, which I will in a few minutes, what it can do if you want to try to do a little bit more of a patterning. I'm going to set this down now and fill it out, and then I'll be back with you in a little bit. Now that my pattern is starting to fill out a little bit here, I just want to point some things out. Sometimes you can do these longer lines here, and if you do them too late in the game, it can be something that catches your eye. So I like to do the longer lines earlier on in this process so that they provide the filling out of the cactus, but that they get covered by shorter, choppier lines. That's just a personal preference. I also feel the same way about vertical and horizontal lines. Now I've started hitting a lot of the different nails here, so one kind of general rule that I also follow is I try to get to every nail one time first. Of course, it's always okay to double up on nails, but in the beginning at least trying to go to ones you haven't gone yet, so that at least you're getting all the lines covered. Another item to be aware of, it's not quite as possibility with this particular design, but some more intricate ones that you decide to do may be an issue. You want to make sure that you always stay within your outline. So some people accidentally cross over what we call the negative space in the design, and that kind of ruins the crispness of your string art when it's finished. Or if you're working with small children, you may want to talk about the concept of staying within the lines, even with their strings, also with colors. I mean, it's not the end of the world if it crosses over, but it's just going to look a little bit more clean if they're just careful about staying within the pattern of the cactus. Chance to hold it up to yourself and kind of see if you like how things are shaping up and how it's looking. Also, to make sure that you like the general pattern. So these two colors of green are actually not that different from each other, so it kind of provides like a subtle shading of the cactus, which I kind of like. I think in general it's looking pretty good. So if you'd like to continue with the zigzag pattern, keep on going until you're satisfied with the fill from inside. I've seen patterns with less fill, more fill, almost completely covering. So it's really up to your style aesthetic and what you think looks nice. There's really no wrong way to do it. I'm going to just take this opportunity to show you in the video also being able over this zigzag pattern to then kind of do a diagonal pattern, which can be kind of visually interesting. You can always try something like this, and if you don't like it, you just unravel it. So for the diagonal pattern, you'll want to start at the very top, and I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. You just want to develop a certain angle. So I just started from the corner between these two, and now I'm just going to drop down to the next one underneath where I started and go to the next one under there. This is something that you can kind of see how it works and how it looks. Experiment a little bit. taken a few minutes to wind up my string again. I really recommend, as soon as you start to realize that you're having a little bit of an issue with that, to just save yourself the headache and stop and rewind it. Because I'm actually at the place where I finished or started, I'm going to just tie off here and relocate up in the two arms of the cactus that I haven't done yet. My string is running a little bit low from this color, so I'll just spare it. If you did have extra string, you could easily just loop around from the inside all the way up to where you need to go. So I'll finish doing this and then I'll show you my finished product. I'd also like to talk about what happens when you need to tie off in an area where you don't have another string. It's really useful to use tweezers at this point to kind of grab the string and pull it through, because you need to have at least a loop to tie your knot around. So you want to leave a loop here, pull it through. So I've created a loop underneath the string that I just went through, and I pull it over and down through the loop. Can take some maneuvering there. Now you want to make sure that you're going to pull your string tight and kind of hold it while you tighten your knot the first round, and then you get to do that all again. So you want to loop around this string, pull it through your loop, and then try to position your knot again on the final knot on the inside, so that when you trim this off, hopefully the extra piece will be on the inside. Okay, so I've finished my diagonal pattern and I'm pretty pleased with it. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the desert rose. With this particular kit, there is a lovely pink color. I'm going to tie on up here, and we can talk about the pattern that I want to do for this. I like to keep the desert rose pretty simple and not fill it with too much color, although it can be totally what you want. So like I always talk about, I really like to do the pattern first, the outline first. So I'm going to go around the outside of the flower, including the base. So this base line here is going to be where the cactus meets the flower, and you can decide whether you want the pink color to be on top or the green color to be on top. So I'm going to go around the outline that I did earlier with the darker green color and make it completely pink now. Alright, so I've reached where I began, the top of the rose here. Now I'm going to do what's called the outline, or what I call the interior outline. So instead of going from outside the nail, now we're going to head back in the other loop one last time around this one and head back in the other direction from the inside of the pattern, from inside the nail. Once I finish this, I'll hold it up so you can see it and you'll be able to see what I mean. Make sure you loop around each nail up here, because it can really make a difference visually at this point. And make sure to, it's easier if you make sure you press down in between each string. Alright, so I've finished the interior and exterior outline here. So I just want to give you a look at what's happened there. So there's a pretty obvious exterior outline and then interior. So you can just leave your flower in this way, or you can do a minor zigzag pattern between the outline that you just did. Again, you want to make sure that you're not going to cross over the petals in a horizontal way, because then that will ruin the top of the petals. So make sure you're only going to go to nails that allow that line to stay within your flower. All right, so I'll finish this and I'll show you the end product. Okay, as you can see, I've finished the rose pattern there. It looks pretty good. I don't want to tie it off yet because I think that I want the pink to be the top color on the top of these items here. So I'm gonna finish the outline for the green, and then I'll come back and finish that off there. So to finish off the exterior and interior outlines for the green, I'm going to switch back to my darker color, tie on to a string or a nail I haven't used yet. By now you know, definitely a double knot. And want to do the same action again. I like to start with the interior outline first so that the last stitch that's on top is the exterior one. So I'll just swing around this way, again going from inside the pattern. If you're really tricky, it looks really nice when the nail is completely filled. So if you have enough string like I do here, you can kind of wrap it around each nail a couple of times in order to kind of fill the space there until it looks pretty good. Remember, you'll be going around one more time too, so I think twice around each nail now will do the trick. Some of them have more, so maybe just once. Just want to make it so this is if you're really fancy. Enough coverage on the side of the nails. This is also something you totally don't even have to worry about. Just skip over, it's not your thing. Just reach back to where I tied on, and what you're going to do is loop around a couple times and then literally go back the way that you came, this time doing the exterior outline the same way we started. So loop around. Now this is the last time you're passing by, so you want to make sure that you're pleased with how it looks on the side. So what I was talking about before is if there's like some space there at the top of the nail that you don't want to see, just wrap it around one or two more times so that your nail is covered in green, if that's what you're going for. So I'll just finish up here and then meet you back. Okay, the last little loop here. I'm going to loop the last one twice, and you know the drill. We trim, we double knot, and then the cactus part of this is finished. The last thing I have to do on this in terms of stringing is do the same exact thing up here with the rose, because now the green outline has gone over the pink area. I just want to reassert the pink in that section and then tie it off, and then I'll show you the finished product. I've just tied off my desert rose on the top here, and there's only one step left and your first cactus is done. You want to take your scissors and very carefully trim the tails. There's an option where you can just leave the tail long and weave it in through your pattern there. I like to usually trim close to the edge, especially if you have a lot of your knots on the interior, they really won't show. This one's a little bit lower. I may kind of try to twist it around and through, and then trim. Always handy to have your tweezers at this point. Okay, I finished cutting off the tails of my big cactus, and now it is complete. I have to say I'm pretty pleased with how it's turning out. I like how the subtly darker green outline kind of pops against the rest of it, and I think my little dusty desert rose is super cute. The great news is that you're in the home stretch now if you've just been doing it along with me. You just have this little tiny cactus left, and there's no desert rose to even worry about. So you just have a few more minutes now. I'll post a picture of my finished product at the end of the tutorial so you can see what I've done. And I'd love to also see what you're able to do. We all put our own different personality and perspective into our projects. So at the bottom of your directions, there's our Instagram handle and a hashtag, my turquoise project. Please feel free to post and tag us. Also, email us if you have any questions or concerns, or if you need any advice, or just to brag a little bit. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial and that you've made a beautiful string art that you'll be proudly displaying in your home. Be sure, if you're interested in receiving more tutorials, to sign up for our email list or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Bye guys! Once you've finished with your cacti, the very last step is putting on this hanging kit on the back. So since you want to protect whatever surface you're working on and your nail art, grab some sort of towel or cushion or something that will allow you to lightly hammer without ruining your nails. This sawtooth hanging kit allows you to hang this on the wall should you want to. You can also find wooden stands at places like Daiso for relatively inexpensive if you just want to have it on a shelf. Take your ruler one last time and determine exactly the center. So this is about 24 centimeters, so about 12 and a half, my pencil. You always want to make sure that you're putting it on the right side up. So okay, that's good. Usually you want to put it on the upper half of your nail art, but it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly center or exactly straight because this is self-correcting. Now the nail will rest on top of this, so we'll want to make sure that the teeth are facing down, so that's where the nail can be. In your packet of nails, you'll have two nails that are much shorter than the other ones. Those are the ones you want to use. Although our piece of wood is thick enough that if you somehow misplace them or something happens, it's also fine to use some of your leftover nails. So you want to have about the dot in the middle for your hanging kit. I like to gently put into place one of the nails. It's a little bit harder to get this going because they're shorter, so there's less space for you to put your fingers there. Now I've lost the other little one. Where'd it go? Oh, I heard it. That's a situation where you might end up having to use one of the other nails. Alright, so I just want to eyeball this and make sure it's relatively straight. Like I said before, it's self-correcting, so making it exact isn't super required. Alright, I've gently tapped those in, and now I'm just going to eyeball it and make sure that they're both straight. It looks pretty good to me, so I'll just knock these in.